The Republican mayor of Mesa, the third largest city in Arizona, came out in support of Vice President Kamala Harris yesterday, calling in an op ed in the Arizona Republic for his fellow conservatives to join him in backing her for president. Mesa Mayor John Giles invoked the late Senator John McCain and his motto of country first in making the case for VP Harris, saying that Republicans have a moral and ethical responsibility to choose country over party come November. And the director of Project 2025, the right wing policy blueprint and personnel project prepared for the next Republican president, that became a political kind of a noose around the neck of Republicans, is departing after the effort drew criticism from former President Donald Trump. The project, which has been a collaborative effort across the conservative ecosystem led by the Heritage Foundation, has become a lightning rod on the 2024 campaign trail, thanks in part to Taraji Henson, that is. The group spent months developing an expansive set of policies, and the president of Heritage Foundation said today it was concluding its drafting of new ideas as planned. However, the Trump team, which has grown increasingly frustrated by the coverage of Project 2025's plans, cheered its apparent end today. And Roy Cooper, the Democratic governor of North Carolina, says he's pulling out of the vetting for vice president. He was motivated in part by a provision in North Carolina's state constitution that says the lieutenant governor becomes the acting governor whenever the governor leaves the state. That means that if Cooper were out campaigning for Harris, the acting governor would be Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, a GOP firebrand who himself is running for governor. And the Republican vice presidential nominee, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio, he privately told donors that running against VP Harris instead of President Biden made the race more challenging, an admission at odds with the public projections of confidence by Donald Trump's team. He said, this is what Vance said, all of us were hit with a little bit of a political sucker punch. Now, he talked about Biden's withdrawal on July 21st, and these are remarks he apparently made just Saturday at a fundraiser in Minnesota. And more than 350 prominent climate advocates today endorsed VP Harris for president, a sign that environmental leaders believe her campaign will energize like-minded voters in a way that Biden had not and perhaps could not. In a letter shared with the Washington Post, big names in the environmental movement, including former U.S. climate envoy John F. Kerry, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and Washington's Governor Jay Inslee, wrote that Harris has long prioritized climate action and would continue to do so as president. Albatross, that's right. I said news. Thank you, Robert. Some famous white dudes, yes, including the guy who played the dude, rallied in support of VP Harris. That was last night. Apparently, almost 180,000 of these white dudes joined a Zoom call to talk about why it was important for white dudes to support the VP for president. On this 3-hour plus call, over $4 million was raised. It included some pretty high-profile political and Democratic donors, operatives, and elected officials. And Donald Trump is set to take place in a Q&A with Black political journalists, that is, as a part of the 2024 National Association of Black Journalists Convention and Career Fair that's happening in Chicago. Now, this news has created a furious backlash on social media, with a number of prominent Black journalists decrying the move. Trump's presidential campaign said in a news release just yesterday, announcing his appearance, that, again, he said it many, many times before, that he had accomplished more for Black Americans than any other president in recent history. Now, the president of the NABJ is defending the decision to have Trump appear at their conference, saying that they have a long history of inviting nominees for president to appear before journalists. He says they are also working on setting up a fact-checking process. However, many Black prominent journalists says that Donald Trump has a history of making racist comments about Black journalists, particularly Black women, and they believe that what should be a safe place for Black journalists is going to be a toxic place with Donald Trump making an appearance at that convention. We're going to talk a lot about that today with my guest. And in some good news, the United States women's gymnastic team are taking home the gold. Well, they already did it because of the time difference. You may not have seen Simone Biles do her thing, but she had a 14.66 score on her floor routine, which secured the gold medal in Paris. With gold in hand, Team USA has adopted a nickname like all the great teams of the past. This one, however, is unlike the rest. Biles revealed it after the competition today at the Olympics. And she just said it's the F around and find out. That's the name of the team. And it really is about the persistence and the tenacity and the perseverance that this team has shown. Many of them were maligned, at the Tokyo Games. And this is a little payback, a little revenge. And Simone Biles said that this gold medal was not only for her, but for her 3 veteran teammates, each of whom she says bears their own scars from the Tokyo game. She says the haters who criticized Biles 3 years ago, some folks are saying they can go pound sand because this most decorated gymnast is showing the world that she is still on the top of her game. So congratulations to Team USA and Simone Biles. Just keep doing what you do. We love you, we see you, and we salute you. That's the news of the day. And this is Areva Martin in Real Time. And I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I am joined by veteran journalist, Emmy Award-winning anchor, Sharon Reed. She's also the host of In the Black Network. Also, Dr. Niambi Carter is here. She's an author and professor at the University of Maryland. So it's only fitting on today when I have 2 female journalists that we are celebrating our sister, our baby sis, I'll call her, Simone Biles. Also in hour 2, we're going to go deep. We're going to dig behind those headlines, bring you those stories that people are talking about. Well, we've been talking a lot on the show about Black voter support for Kamala Harris, the enthusiasm from that first phone call the night that it was announced that she was going to be running for president. We've seen so much online energy around Harris. But today we're going to be talking to some Indian Americans, Southeast or South Asian Americans, because Kamala Harris is of mixed race. She is African American. Her father's Jamaican, but her mother is an Indian woman that came to the U.S. And Indian Americans are now the largest population among Asian Americans. That's according to a recent U.S. Census. And in states like Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and Michigan, these states have relatively large Indian American communities that could prove pivotal in a tight race, or in what we believe to be this tight presidential election. Also, there are a significant number of Asian American lawmakers in some of these key states like Georgia, where the vice president is today holding a big campaign rally. So in hour 2, we're going to talk to 2 Asian American organizers, talk to them about how the Indian community is organizing around Kamala Harris. What cues, if any, are they taking from the Black community, a community that has been organizing for decades now, has a lot of history, has a lot of playbooks, has a lot of veteran organizers that we can look to. How is the Indian community? And there's sometimes some chatter online that the Indian community feels like the media doesn't pay enough attention to Kamala Harris's Indian roots. I'm going to talk to these 2 organizers about that and what they expect to see in this upcoming election, how they are organizing, how they are inspiring voters, and what some of the challenges are. Again, people of color are often lumped into one big category. What are the issues that are motivating Indian Americans? Are they the same issues that motivate Black folks, that motivate Latino voters? I want to hear from them directly what they think the president needs to do, or VP, I should say, needs to do in order to become the president. What are the issues that their community is most keenly focused on in this presidential election? So stick around. They say this is going to be a coalition presidency, that we're going to win this because of coalition. So we need to definitely be paying attention, close attention to those that make up our Democratic coalition. But before I bring on my guests, I want to talk about what I'm thinking about in real time, and it has to do with how we win this election. There are a lot of pundits. If you turn on any cable news station any day of the week, you're going to see just a myriad of pundits. Some of these folks are ex-Republicans. Some are never Trumpers, and many of them are Democratic strategists. But they all have some advice for Kamala Harris. And one of the pieces of advice that's starting to get a lot of attention is this notion that she should move to the center. That when you become a candidate for president, that if you're going to win, you've got to appeal to those independent voters and those moderate voters. So a lot of folks on cable news are telling Kamala Harris, move to the center. And I'm starting to wonder if some of these pundits really understand where Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, for that fact, since a lot of her policies are going to be very similar to his, if they understand where she stands and where the American people, more importantly, stand on a myriad of issues. The reality is, even though Donald Trump has an ad out, a new ad calling her a radical leftist, trying to paint Kamala Harris as some kind of communist party, as some kind of extremist, there is only one radical candidate in this race, and that's Donald Trump. He's the candidate that wants to shred the fabric of America, literally wants to shred our Constitution. So the radical in this race, despite what you may hear, is not Kamala Harris. In fact, she is a part of the supermajority on the issues that voters say they care about most in this election. And I believe Vice President Harris and down ballot Democrats have the chance to remind voters in this election that what the MAGA crowd derides as liberal or extremists in practice really just means delivering things that Americans want, the things that the majority of American people say are important to them. So it's important that when you hear this term radical left or extreme leftist in her politics, make sure you are being discerning when you hear this term and think about what it is that the Democrats want to do versus what it is that Donald Trump and the Republicans want to do in this race. Because if you do a side-by-side comparison, there's nothing radical about what Kamala Harris policies are and will do for this country. And if you don't trust me, you can look at a lot of data that has already been produced. The Nonpartisan Voice of the People, that's an organization, a nonpartisan organization, put out some data earlier this year just showing what American people are thinking on a whole lot of policies. And again, when you look at that data, when you look at that report, what you will find is that 75% of all Americans favor the following, and that is green energy subsidies for the cost of equipment to produce clean energy. That's what Kamala Harris is and will be talking about on her campaign. And that's why she just got 350 climate change or climate advocates to come out in support of her campaign. Now, they didn't come out in support of Donald Trump because it's not Kamala Harris who's radical on climate issues, it's Donald Trump. She is in support, as are 75% of Americans, requiring police officers to intervene when another officer is using excessive force and to wear and to turn on body cameras when responding to police calls or interacting with a suspect. Nothing radical about that. Just intervene if somebody is using violence or violating the Constitution and wear a body cam. We bought them and we know they can be the matter of knowing what truthfully happened in a situation or not. Most Americans agree with that. There's nothing radical about that. Keeping the Affordable Care Act, allowing Americans over the age of 55 to purchase Medicare, increasing SNAP benefits. 75% of all Americans are in agreement with that. Nothing radical. Taxing capital gains at the same rate as ordinary income for those making more than $1 million. Everyday people are in agreement with that. Not radical. Providing DACA recipients with full legal status and a pathway to citizenship. They've been waiting long enough. Again, nothing radical. Most Americans are in agreement with that. Federal action to support abortions, to support a woman's right to choose. Again, nothing radical. Allowing and continuing to allow people to marry who they love, supporting LGBTQ rights to marry. 67% of all Americans agree with that. The bipartisan infrastructure bill, 65% of Americans agree with that. Banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, like the one that just shot Donald Trump or was used to shoot Donald Trump. 67% of Americans agree with that. Not banning books that teach Black history and teaching about the history of this country. Total agreement by the majority of Americans. Legalizing marijuana. 80% of Americans agree with that. So again, this notion that Kamala Harris has to move closer to the center ignores the reality that she already is in alignment with the majority of American people. Let's just keep reminding folks that it is the MAGA movement that has gone off the deep end, and it is the party of extremism. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Tavis is like George and Wheezy. He's moving on up. Last year, Tavis was number 45 on the Talkers magazine list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America. Wait for it. Wait for it. The 2024 list was recently released, and Tavis has jumped to number 33 on the list of the nation's most important talkers, making him the highest-ranked African-American on the coveted roster. Congratulations to Tavis Smiley from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got you black.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Kind of like choosing Derek Jeter as the pinch hitter for your baseball team.
Jeter, you're in. We need a home run.
I'll give it a try. I've swung a bat once or twice.
That's out of here.
Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
We're thrilled to announce that the Dear Future Wifey podcast is now available on the Urban One Podcast Network. This show, hosted by Latiris R. Whitfield, explores the journey of discovering and rediscovering love and relationships. With over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, Dear Future Wifey has become a prototype for discussions about love and relationships. Learn how to rediscover love, heal, and have faith in relationships. Go to urbanonepodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us and our climate justice campaign partner, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr., as we celebrate the grand unveiling of the South LA Greenway, Saturday, August 3rd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Augustus Hawkins Nature Park, 5790 Compton Avenue in the city of Los Angeles. Join us for a green and healthy festival with free food, planting activities, tree adoptions, nature walking tours, Zumba, yoga, sound baths, and more. It's summer, time to get outside. We look forward to seeing you at the dedication of the South LA Greenway, Saturday, August 3rd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Augustus Hawkins Nature Park, 5790 Compton Avenue in the city of Los Angeles. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr. and KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and Sharon Reed and Dr. Niambi Carter are joining me. Sharon, you are in the great city of Atlanta, the state of Georgia, and our VP is in Atlanta right now at a rally. I'm hearing from my contacts that it is a well-attended rally, and she is riling up this large crowd. And while she does that, there is this raging fire going on around Donald Trump appearing at the NABJ conference that's coming up. Now, you are an Emmy Award winning journalist and anchor, so I'm sure you have some feelings about Donald Trump. Lots of other prominent journalists have weighed in, some saying, of course, he should be there. He's running for president. The journalists should have an opportunity to question him and interrogate him on the policies that he plans to put in place if he wins. Others are saying, look, this man has a history of racist comments and, just bullying of Black women journalists in particular. Why is he here? This is supposed to be a safe space. And if he has to come, how come there are no Black outlets that are involved in, the panel that he's going to participate in that apparently is closed and is going to be aired on Facebook and YouTube. So what are you feeling in this moment? You can talk about VP Harris, or definitely tell me what you're feeling, or tell us what you're feeling about this conference and Donald Trump.
Well, we'll start with Camelot, as they're calling it. I don't know who got the bigger ovation, Meg Thee Stallion, who performed, or the vice president now running for president of the United States, hottest ticket in town. Areva, I love you because I had VIP seating to this thing, but I wasn't going to let you down. I confirmed with you first. Okay. I love you that much. But listen, if you think she's not going to be back here, but it's the hottest ticket in town, I had to put my phone on silent because my friends who are there are just so giddy and talking about how there is just a cross-pollination and there's everyone, Black, white, old, gay, straight. It's just a wonderful thing with plenty of young people there. She just gave remarks, as I'm sure your producers are monitoring it too, where she raised immigration. And we know she has to do that and has to talk about her record because that has been raised, misrepresented on the other side. So I caught a little bit of that. Now, NABJ, now this is ridiculous. I do agree with Jamel Hill that when you're running for president, you should be there and we should be able to ask you some tough questions. But Areva, that's not what's happening here. That's not what's going on here. Okay. Harris Faulkner, we may or may not share the same agent, works for a propaganda machine, a lie machine.
Let me ask you this, Sharon, real quickly. I was curious, would Harris Faulkner even be there but for Donald Trump? Would she be on a panel otherwise?
Well, I haven't been to every single one like a lot of my friends and colleagues, NABJ, I'm talking about the conference that happens every summer, but I never saw her at the ones I was at. Okay, that's just anecdotal. So let's be clear here. Rachel Scott, ABC, I have nothing against her or the great, mighty ABC network, but where are the Black-owned networks? Where are the Black press? Where's Real Times Media? This whole thing is a sham and a setup. And for, the young lady.
Sharon, what's in it for? Is it money? Are they getting paid? I've heard some really horrible rumors. What are you hearing about?
Too, but I think that's a strong possibility. That's definitely a candidate. But it's the way this went down. Would the National Organization of Women invite a rapist onto their conference? Would they do that? I don't know why we're doing this, okay? If you want to invite him on, how about have the same journalist that he's disparaged and talked trash on, April Ryan and others, and let them do the questioning? That's not
well,
what
let me let
transparent.
Dr. Carter jump in. Dr. Carter, do you agree? Because some folks take the position, love him or hate him, he is the Republican nominee for president. And how can we have thousands of journalists gathered, many of whom are covering the election, and not invite both candidates? And apparently VP Harris was invited. Her acceptance is pending, so we don't know if she's going to be able to show up or not. But what do you think? Do you think because he is the nominee for the Republicans, he does need to be there?
Well, I agree with everything Sharon just said, because let's be clear, we cannot normalize a Donald Trump. He is not a usual political candidate. And if we've seen the draft, or not the draft, I'm sorry, the press release that went out, he's treating this as some sort of tacit endorsement. And if I'm not mistaken, he was invited in both 2016 and 2020, and he demurred. He did not show. But now that he feels that he might be in trouble, he wants to speak to a room full of Black folks. I am not sold on the moderator. I'm not a journalist, so far be it for me to speak on the journalists. From that aspect, I will defer to Sharon there. But he is certainly not going to be held accountable, because Donald Trump is never held accountable. And anyone who thinks that this man, because he lies, right, every time he's opened his mouth, he's lying, is going to be held accountable because somebody might ask him a hard question. Donald Trump is very good at the media. Let's not be fooled. He's not going to be steamrolled. He is not going to be intimidated. He changes the conversation. He avoids the question, not even changes the question. He just starts talking. So this to me is a fool's errand. What I think the NABJ has done, is normalize this man. They have treated him like he is a legitimate political actor who is there to actually talk about policy and politics, which he is not. He is going to turn this into yet another photo op. We've seen all the people that came to the Trump Tower and had their pictures snapped with him. That's how he is treating this. So I think this is a really bad look, not because they haven't invited all the candidates. I think that's a legitimate journalistic endeavor. Donald Trump is not a legitimate politician in my eyes. He doesn't act like a politician. And also, it seems as if they were not willing to make some concessions for Vice President Harris. She's at Sheila Jackson Lee's funeral. Somebody from NABJ needs to be at Sheila Jackson Lee's funeral. Like, let's not pretend that that's not important. And she's also talking to SG Rowe.
Hold that thought for me, Dr. Carter, because I do want to talk about the press release that Donald Trump has already put out saying he's the best president for Black folks ever. So you got to fact check him. Start with that press release. I want to talk about these white dudes for Kamala Harris. What does it say about how broad her support is across so many different demographics when we come forward? KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Former President Donald Trump will be in Chicago this week. His campaign says he's attending the National Association of Black Journalists Convention on Wednesday. Trump will participate in a Q&A with political journalists that will concentrate on issues facing the Black community. Vice President Kamala Harris was also invited to the convention, but she has not confirmed whether she will attend. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is defending his decision to suspend parts of a new law related to solitary confinement. It would have set a 4-hour limit on how long prisoners can be kept in solitary de-escalation confinement and limits the use of handcuffs and leg restraints on detainees. Adams, who is Black, says the new law would have put the safety at risk for inmates, civilians, and correction officers. He says that was also the opinion of the federal monitor overseeing the Rikers Island prison system. Elected officials who backed the law criticized the mayor and says he's abusing his power. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
In the Cahuenga Pass on the 101 southbound, right before Barham Boulevard, there's a crash that's now been moved over to the right-hand shoulder. It looks like traffic is slow from the 134. In Paramount on the 91 eastbound, just after Atlantic Avenue, there's a crash that's moved over to the right-hand shoulder involving a big rig. Traffic slow from Main Street there. And in Sun Valley on the 170 northbound at Roscoe Boulevard, a crash. This is over on the right shoulder as well. Traffic is slow from Sherman Way.
Hey, DQ fans, the $7 bacon cheeseburger meal deal will leave you and your wallet full. Grab a bacon cheeseburger and order of regular fries, a drink, and a sundae for a whole lot of happy. Only at participating DQ locations. Happy tastes good.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The U.S. women's basketball team had no trouble at all in their first game in the Summer Olympics in Paris. They beat Japan by 26. 56 straight wins for the U.S. women in Olympic competition, a streak that started in 1992 in Barcelona. Asia Wilson had 24 points and 13 rebounds. Next game for the women's team is Saturday against Belgium. The U.S. men's basketball team is off until Wednesday. They have a second-round matchup against South Sudan. Simone Biles confirmed she will compete today in the women's gymnastic team finals. Biles suffered a mild calf strain on Sunday. Simone is trying to become the first gymnast in the world, male or female, to win 5 gold medals in the same Olympics. The Dodgers and Angels are back on the field tonight after a day off yesterday. The Dodgers are in San Diego. The Angels are at home against Colorado. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Environmental justice is racial justice.
Environmental justice is social justice.
This is KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% APR on all 2024 Silverado 1500, Blazer EV, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Colorado models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment, 17.0%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/31/24.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us for a book party celebrating The Covenant with Black America 20 years later. Almost 2 decades ago, the Covenant book, compiled and edited by Tavis Smiley, climbed to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list and stayed there for weeks. The first book by a Black-owned publisher to achieve such a feat. The urgency of the issues that matter most to Black fellow citizens has only intensified, especially in this critical election year. On Wednesday evening, August 14th, 6 to 9 p.m., come meet Tavis Smiley alongside Covenant contributors including Cornel West, Connie Rice, Mark Ridley Thomas, Elisa Orduna, Tyrone Howard, and Melina Abdullah as they sign copies of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later. You can purchase your books on site and get them autographed. That's Wednesday evening, August 14th, 6 to 9 p.m. in the city of Los Angeles. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got your black.
We're back, and Sharon Reed and Dr. Niambi Carter are joining me in this hour. In hour 2, we're going to be talking to some Indian American, Asian American organizers who are on the front lines working to get Kamala Harris elected. We talk about coalition building. These are folks who are building coalitions with other Democratic leaders across a broad swath. And we're seeing lots of folks pop up. Sharon, obviously this Atlanta, your friend probably told you that it's over. So it wasn't a really long rally. I don't think, getting in to see the vice president or the president is always a lot longer because of security issues, but it doesn't seem like it was a super long rally, which was probably good. But lots of folks are popping up. Lots of these Zoom calls, white dudes for Kamala was big yesterday. And some famous white dudes, including the guy that played the dude, rallied in support of the VP. And a lot of folks were saying, hey, I'm white, I'm a dude, and I support her. So I should get on this call with 180,000 other participants. What do you make of this enthusiasm, these calls that are popping up all over the place from so many different groups?
I think Donald Trump's in trouble when people have FOMO. Okay, when people are afraid that this is Obama-like, it really is this time, Areva, where people are saying, I want to remember this. How can I be part of this? I don't want to miss this. That energy is undeniable. And that's a problem for the Trump campaign. But it's a bigger positive for the other side, the Kamala Harris ticket. And when she adds who she adds, and my thought is, yes, I know people are going heavy on, Mark Kelly, but I still think it's going to be Shapiro. That's just me. But I think the energy surrounding this, everybody wants to get in on the action. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
These calls have become like community things, like a little virtual block party, if you will, telling jokes, self-deprecating comments from the white dudes. It's fun. And we've been in such an angry, vitriol place in America and American politics. It's okay to breathe, have fun, and feel safe, hoping that your candidate can actually do this.
Yeah, Dr. Carter, I don't think you're a sociologist. Maybe you are, but I'm going to ask you this question anyhow. You're probably sociologist proximate, right? You're probably sitting next to some sociologists at your university. But I'm thinking about what we're seeing, and I'm thinking about Black church runs. When Kamala Harris ran for Senate, I rode and I was her liaison with Black churches, particularly here in LA, because I have a lot of relationships with Black churches. And so every Sunday, or on the campaign trail, when it was time, we'd show up, meet, and go to different Black churches. And that was a way to a lot of elected officials, souls to the polls, go into Black churches on GOTV weekend and really motivate Black churchgoers to turn out. I mean, it's been a big part of the civil rights strategy for decades, the clergy, faith-based organizations. It was very clear during these years that this is pre-COVID, but that the Black church was not the Black church of 20 years ago, of even 10 years ago in terms of attendance. I remember driving up to one, it was Mother's Day, and we thought we had missed the service because the lot was so light.
Wow.
And we got in and it was like, no, you didn't miss the service. This is Mother's Day service. I mean, it was really shocking because, Easter and Mother's Day, you can count on a packed Black church no matter where you go. So I'm just wondering from a sociology standpoint, can these calls be sustained as a form of community? And can they, or are they becoming the place, so rather than driving around in a car, going from church to church, might GOTV weekend look like these big calls? Now, you don't have the in-person community. You don't have the pastor that's going to visit the sick. You don't have, some of the things that obviously Black church provides for our community. But what do you make from a sociology standpoint of these calls and the sustainability of them?
Well, I certainly won't speak as a sociologist. I'm a social scientist. I'm a political scientist, but I am not a sociologist. But what I will say is this. The reason that Black churches are so important is because we own those spaces. They were ours. There was no encroachment. There was no sort of outside eyes. This was a place where we could speak and we could organize. And I agree. Our relationship to faith has changed. Churches have changed, right? As we have moved from, talking about liberation to profiteering. I mean, churches are not what they used to be either. But I don't think we should say that we don't have places. Barbershops are important. Beauty salons are important. Schools are important. Neighborhoods are important. So while they might not be formal institutional settings like we're used to, there are places where you can reach people. Online is part of that. I think what makes the online thing hard for some people, because they're like, is this in real life? Does hashtavism, right? Does hanging out on a phone call turn into actual momentum? But when we think about the fact that people can stuff envelopes from home, that people can make phone calls from home, that people can donate money from their phones anywhere they are in the world, a lot of that volunteerism that we're talking about can be organized or situated online. And if we're talking about young people, we have to meet them where they are. They're not at church, right? But they are online. They are on TikTok. They are on Instagram. And the fact that Kamala Harris has been able to generate thousands upon thousands of people to show up to these phone calls, right? Which have been in existence for a while, right? Women with Black women is not new,
right?
But this energy tells us something about the potential to turn that in to real activism and to real showing up and showing out. Because let's be clear, Kamala Harris is not just connected to Black women on these calls. She is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And we know they are going to show out. And we know that they are going to mobilize their sisters in Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. They are going to all of those places, and they're going to bring those other women into, and those people have tentacles everywhere. We have nieces and nephews and aunties and uncles and communities. So even if it's not done in the way that we always did it, I absolutely think there's a way to keep this momentum going. She's certainly been able to generate a lot of cash, and that's an important part of elections. But I think the energy is there, and that volunteerism is there, that spirit of wanting to participate. I mean, I've seen people who were in their 20s saying for the first time they're actually kind of paying attention. And my 21-year-old nephew was staying with me now, and this is like the first time he really gets to participate, and he's excited, not necessarily because it's Kamala Harris, but because it's like there's this person that I understand her story, because he's an HBCU undergraduate. And he's like, this person has a trajectory and a story that looks like mine. And I can connect to that. Even if we may differ on some issues, I got to do my due diligence. So there are huge communities that she is connected to in these HBCU networks and these other things, which is why some people didn't understand why it was important for her to be in Texas right now and to be talking to these people, because they don't understand the way that our communities function. And they don't understand all the institutions that work through our communities. I'm not an AKA, but my sister is. A lot of her friends are.
Right.
Those people have relationships to all of us. So I think, people looking on the outside and don't know Black people and don't know Black communities, don't know how significant other kinds of institutions that exist within our communities, the NAACPs, the urban leagues, the links, that are all being activated, how important those groups are.
No doubt about it. And the influence that someone like a Taraji Henson, Sharon, has when she introduced Black America in some ways to Project 2025, a project that Donald Trump says, good riddance, glad you're gone. At least that's what he said on the surface. So I would say, he's been forced to disavow, to distance. He was already distancing himself. I suspect he called one of the 140 people that used to work for him, that some still do work for him, and say, shut that down, shut that expletive down, right?
Yeah.
You said it as nicely as I just said it, but it's pretty clear that somebody was told, if you don't get that whatever out of here, shut it down today. I want to shut down tomorrow. I want the man in charge of it gone, because this could wreck my campaign. As more people were learning. So ironic. I just got invited to speak before a group to explain what the dangers of Project 2025. I got to write it back. He says, well, maybe we don't need to waste time on that, because according to Donald Trump, it is no more. But when we come forward, Sharon, I want to talk about the influence of, what's happening in terms of how quickly this race, because I don't think you and I have talked since this race, we had our text messages, but on air, since this race has literally been turned around, and how it is forcing Donald Trump to run a different campaign. And then you have his VP saying on what he thought was a private fundraiser call that they felt like they
weird
sucker punch. That's a pretty honest statement for a man like JD Vance that doesn't really have a good relationship with the truth. So when we come forward, we're going to talk about what is this political sucker punch that JD Vance is talking about. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
Hey LA,
Today, I'm here to talk to you about Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit in LA that focuses on renewable energy. We serve communities who have been left out of the renewable energy sector. We offer paid job training, and in 13 weeks, you can become a solar installer. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry, and once you're hired in the industry, you stop at a high, medium income. That could be $20 an hour or more. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry. Call today so you don't be left out at 323-861-0105 or gridalternatives.org, gridalternatives.org.
Hello, LA. Metro is your partner for thriving communities and sustainable travel. We're dedicated to providing better transit for everyone. When you go Metro, you're more connected to jobs, healthcare, school, and loved ones. It's the way of the future. Start your journey at metro.net.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys.
Let's take our auntie to the swap meet.
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% APR on all 2024 Silverado 1500, Blazer EV, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Colorado models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 17.0%. Plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/31/24.
Yeah. The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe to
All right, Sharon, the momentum and the energy has clearly shifted once the announcement was made that not only that Kamala Harris is running, but that Joe Biden gave her that full-throated endorsement. And we just saw, so many other Democrats kind of falling in line. We talk about Democrats not often falling in line, but we've seen them do so around her. There's some reports that Trump would have chosen a different candidate to be VP other than J.D. Vance if he had known that there was going to be a change at the top of the Democratic ticket. He's been complaining about it, saying he was bamboozled, that he invested all this money in his campaign against Joe Biden, that the party owed him back money. I mean, he's just been rambling all kinds of craziness. But Vance, who apparently up until he decided to become a Republican and cash in on that, was very honest in some text messages about his disdain for the police and the fact that white folks voting for Donald Trump would be harmful to Black people. He said a lot of honest things. And recently he said something very honest, like he feels like there was a sucker punch, that all of them, meaning all of these Republicans, were hit with a bit of a political sucker punch. What do you think is going to be the best way that Trump can get back on his feet? Because as Harris is MVP motivating Georgians, very key state, Donald Trump is defending childless cat lady comments by J.D. Vance. So he's playing defensive when Harris is, again, has all the momentum. And now there's the excitement about who she's going to select as VP because she's going to be out on the campaign trail with them next week. So this has so far been a well orchestrated rollout and campaign on the Democratic side, which doesn't always happen for us.
Well, and I would hate to give him this campaign strategy, Areva, but he's not going to, he doesn't have the ability, the capacity, the acuity, as they like to say, to follow it. So I'll go ahead and spit it out. The only chance he has, and I still don't think it would work against this candidate Kamala Harris, is to, I guess, take medication and go straight. And by that, I mean, stop calling people names like it's preschool and stand before a podium and fake serious for once. Fake something that's of importance. He is unable to do that. He cannot follow the blueprint. And all this talk about how they were left flat-footed, we didn't know how. You are trying out for the leader of the free world. And apparently you accidentally got in there. So you had one try at it already, and you don't know any better than that to prepare. You thought with more than 100 days to go that it's in the bag. And so we can choose weird. And I thought, the Democrats shouldn't get down in the mud. And then I started reading all of the things and the text messages and the emails and the JD Vance, this and that, and love ya Sophs. And I'm good with all that. But the problem with people like Vance, and dare I say Nikki Haley, is not that they say such devilish, terrible things. That's bad enough. It's that we don't know actually who you are. I'd rather know who you are, because America is good at dealing with that. But when yesterday you were somebody else, boy, these are the most dangerous, personal, win at all cost, pivot when I need to, me people. And you better be real careful. You better be real careful about people like that. There's nothing that can work, Areva. Okay? We've got to just keep pushing ahead as a country. Everybody's done. You remember the saying when they said, we quit you? It's like, maybe you were in your teens. It's not very nice. I quit you. Probably nobody ever said it to you, Areva. But America's collectively saying, just for a few people, we quit you. Okay? We're done.
We're done. We
Bye,
dead
boo.
Donald Trump. And that doesn't mean physical harm to him. It just means his policies are over.
Give the disclaimer.
Yeah, one of the things I hope that happens, because we know he's going to challenge, he's going to cheat, he's going to try to hold on to whatever his election victories may be, whatever states he might win. He's already put in place election officials so that he doesn't have to face what will be the reality of some states. And some of those people have already come out, Dr. Carter, saying they won't certify the vote if they don't like it, if it's not for Donald Trump. So we've got to be prepared to win, and I think win really big. So there's not even any question. And it looks like we may get some help. This mayor from the third largest city in Arizona, Mesa, Arizona, he's come out in favor. Mayor John Giles says that Donald Trump is a threat to this country. He ticks off all the things that he's done that makes him unqualified. Then we have this former lieutenant governor, Republican, lifelong Republican in Georgia, also saying that he is also endorsing Kamala Harris. So I was having this conversation with someone earlier. If we win big enough, might this be the end of the Donald Trump MAGA era? Might those conservative, moderate Republicans say, you know what, this guy's lost 2 presidential elections. He's lost midterm elections. He has, basically destroyed our party as we know it. It is time for him, his failed policies, his failed campaigns to move, to the left, to the right, or just exit the stage. Do you think that's possible? Am I being too optimistic, Dr. Carter?
Well, let me just say this really quickly. I forgot to say Zeta Phi Beta. So Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. I forgot to say them. I'm sorry. But look, it took us a long time to get to Donald Trump. It'll probably take us a long time to back away from a Donald Trump, because I think the thing we have to note is Donald Trump didn't get here on his own. A lot of people enabled him because they were searching for power. They were seeking this sort of cult-like leadership because they wanted to get certain things done around abortion. And of course, they have a longer term objective around gay marriage and all kinds of things, right? And so Donald Trump is a means to an end for them. They don't believe in him. They know he doesn't believe in them. He's not a Christian. He doesn't really care about politics, governance, leadership, limits, boundaries, right? Like none of those things matter. They needed a champion. They needed somebody who could rile up the base, and he did it. It took them a very long time to get here. Like I tell people all the time, the right didn't just win with Donald Trump. They've been doing this for like 60 years. It was the end of a project, or really just the beginning of a project. It just took them a long time to get there. There were a lot of failures in between. I think the fever can break if we have more Republicans of conscience willing to put their political careers on the line, willing to risk the dangers. Because let's be clear, the reason that Donald Trump had to get a JD Vance is because his last vice president was threatened with death, and he didn't seem to mind, right?
But wait a minute, Dr. Carter, if he loses big, like I'm projecting, you don't think that's going to be enough to motivate these Republicans to say, we need to take our party back because we need to win something? Give me 30 seconds on that, because I want to hear your
He
opinion.
had 3 court justices. They won real big. So yes, they lost at the state level in some cases, but think about it.
But if they lose this election big, you still think the Trump and the MAGA crew reign supreme?
I don't know that they reign supreme, but they're still going to be heavy hitters. He got them 3 Supreme Court justices. He got the Dobbs decision passed.
But
they run
Sharon,
the table
if the
on
man
governorships.
loses 2 presidential elections and loses the House,
they don't believe in loss.
Yet again,
it was stolen. He didn't lose.
Hold on, Sharon. You think Donald Trump, none of these Republicans, like this Arizona mayor, like this former lieutenant governor of Georgia, you don't think they get on the phone and say, okay, it's time?
Listen, I'm going to say this, and maybe it's a little bit of splitting the baby. The doctors, right? They're not just going to disappear. Some will go underground, okay? Some will keep being loud. Others will pretend they've never been there before, okay? And they'll try to rejoin society, but they will still be here. The Democratic Party and progressives and everybody who's aligned with the Harris campaign and soon to be, we hope, an administration are going to have to finish the job. They're going to have to take care of the Supreme Court and send Clarence Thomas in that Winnebago out of here, okay? And Trump can go with him. They're going to have to prosecute Donald Trump for actual crimes and drop him off at Rikers Island. They have to finish the job, because if they don't.
On that note, Sharon, we gotta finish this hour. Thank you for helping us with finishing this hour. And thank you for speaking like a lawyer, splitting the baby. Okay, you're hanging around too much.
I like being on with the doctor too.
On fire, just as we have to say goodbye. Thank you. Oh my God, what an amazing conversation. Thank you for all the insights that you shared. Sharon, go get the video of that rally that you missed to be here. We appreciate you dearly. I owe
Only
you a
for
ticket
you,
to the
Areva.
next
We
Kamala
love
Harris
you.
rally. When we come forward, more of today's breaking trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. I'm sorry, ladies, we ran out of time, but
no, you got great.
No problem. Have a great rest of your show.
Thank
Bye,
you, ladies.
Areva.
See you next time.
All right.